Hello everybody. Lovely to see you. So this is not about William Blake, very sorry to disappoint. I'm about to play you a clip of a mother and toddler group of them making up a song around being with their babies. And I think a lot of us know how important it is both for children, for babies and for mothers and carers and fathers to bond by using singing and the voice. So I want you to just have a little listen to this. No, don't do that. Maybe a couple of pregnant ladies in there too. What's that got to do? Well, those are our songs of innocence, because the strange thing is that setting, oh good, is there. So that was recorded inside a mother and baby unit in a female prison. And what is interesting is that often women are not expecting a custodial sentence when they go to court. So they don't make provisions for their babies. Only 9% of children whose mums are in prison are cared for by their fathers. And for 85% of mothers, prison was the first time they've been separated from their children. 17,000 children are separated from their mothers by imprisonment. And 66 of female prisoners are mothers. There's only 6 special care units, mother and baby units, in prisons in this country. There's 14 prisons for women in this country, and only 6 have mother and baby units. It is incredibly important, because it's bad enough being sent to prison, but going to prison while you're pregnant and having your baby taken from you is a pretty horrific situation. Okay, so swear alert coming up. The chaplain at the prison where I worked used to describe it a little bit as like being in a room with somebody who'd soiled themselves. And that's what it was like. There was very little evil and a huge amount of damage. 50% of women in prison have endured domestic violence, and the rates of self-harm are 4 times higher than male prisoners. 53% of women report having endured emotional, physical or sexual abuse. I would say of the hundreds of women that I worked with over 2 years, that figure was nearer 80%. 40% of women in prison left school before 16, and over 30% have been in care. What do you think the percentage of prisoners in the UK are women? What's the percentage, if that is a question? Help me out on this. What do you think? How many women of the whole prison population, what percentage do you think are women? 30% are women. 20? 25. 25. It's like bingo, it's marvellous. Prison bingo, 5%. 5% of the prison population in this country are women, and the majority of them are in for non-violent offences. So I worked as a music therapist inside a prison for 2 years, which is sadly why I can't play you any of the work, but all I can say to you is that it was extraordinary, it was heartbreaking, it was amazing. I worked with all kinds of women in all kinds of ways. There was lots of storytelling, lots of songwriting, lots of changing narrative, and lots of restorative justice. Women who would write out their stories, write out their songs to kind of explain what had happened to them and how they'd ended up where they'd ended up. And I was very, very blessed to be able to do that work. Another institution that I worked in was Yarlswood, which is a detention centre in Bedford. This is actually at the South Bank Centre in London, and this is a group of women who belong to an organisation called Women for Refugee Women. And what happened was we went inside Yarlswood, and some of the women recorded songs. Now the UK is the only country in Western Europe where detention is indefinite. France, it's 45 days. You can't hold an asylum seeker for longer than 45 days, but in the UK there's indefinite detention. And coincidentally, the refugee tales are walking from Brighton to Hastings this year. So if you get a chance to go, it's Refugee Tales, Google it, go on the walk because it's fabulous. So this is a young woman who sang this song inside Yarlswood, which I then played to these women outside, and then they recorded songs for me to take back inside. So, this is a song from Namibia about singing, recorded inside Yarlswood.
Singe mama, singele, singelele, singelele.
And what we did, we learned this song, and actually my partner was there. We taught it to all of these women, and then we taught it to all the audience who came. And the amazing thing was, this young woman left Yarlswood and went and joined this group of women, and they'd known her through her voice. Because they said, oh, so are you the woman who recorded that song? That's amazing. So she felt like she was going into a community of people that she knew. If you want to find out more about this project, you can find it on YouTube. It's called Hear Her Singing, which sadly I've not got time to go into now. But Hear Her Singing on YouTube, you'll find more about that particular project that was done in conjunction with the Hayward Gallery and the South Bank Centre. Really recommended. So why music? I love this first quote. I'm going to do that awful thing and read something that you can perfectly well read yourselves. So actually, Tim, would you mind reading that top one for me, please?
Yeah, I can do that. So music is a more accessible way of ordering emotion in everyday life than other art forms.
So often people have said to me, I don't know how to articulate this, but I can play it out or I can sing it out. And I think that's because people's core relationship to music often remains sound and whole, even if everything else around this seems disrupted or damaged. This basic attachment to music is often a key resource for people to locate what is still healthy in themselves and others. And I think bottom line is, whoever you're working with, that is very much the case. Okay, we're moving now from one kind of institution to a different kind of institution. We're now moving to a hospital setting. So just moving through from female prison into Yarlswood into a hospital setting, still an institution. Cystic fibrosis, Royal Brompton Hospital in London. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disorder, and it affects not only the lungs, but the pancreas, the liver, kidneys and intestines. It's a horrible, horrible disease. And the people who stay in the Brompton Hospital are often there for months and months and months, having long intravenous injections of antibiotics. And the only thing that they get to see is this view out of the window. And this was done by a patient with CF in the Brompton at the time. And I'm going to tell you a little story about somebody there that I worked with. So this was done by Kate Hughes, and you can find her work again on YouTube. But the significance of this song is as follows. One of the young women, I went into her room. She was angry, she was scared. She was approaching 30, and in CF years, that is very, very old. She sings her heart out with me, peering across the rooftops from this tiny room which has been her home for months. She'd never been in hospital this long. Her lung function is not good. She needs a feeding tube in her stomach. She can't engage with anyone. We sing When We Were Young by Adele.
Can I have a moment before I go?
And when she sings about getting old,
'cause I've been by myself all
and
night,
feeling I'm so mad I'm getting old, she collapses in tears and she laughs as she cries, and she looks me in the eyes and says,
like a movie.
thank you.
You sound like a soul.
Now I'm afraid that at this point I would fade out gracefully, but unfortunately we don't have the technology. So it's going to be clump, which means you can't get too sad. Alright, so breathlessness is another talk for another day. Alex, the physiotherapist who lives locally, Alex Hoff, gave a talk on breathlessness. and it's the main part of my work. But moving across from the Brompton Hospital now to the Harefield Hospital, are you keeping up? Patients who've got have cystic fibrosis, often they are on the lung transplant list. So they'll get a new set of lungs, but often those lungs will only last 5 years because lungs get infected. And I worked with a young woman there, and she sang "Oh What a Night." She was very frail and very ill, and her brother, a big burly postman, and physically her very opposite, came into the room, took out his phone, found the words and joined in. The two of them had not sung together since they were children. A nurse entered and placed a line in her arm and smiled throughout. 2 weeks later she was even frailer and could only manage a whisper. We sang a song she was going to have played at her wedding, but she'd postponed to the summer. We faced each other and we sang gently. As I left, I gave her a recorder, you know, like a recorder. I like the idea of her subverting the buzzing and the beeping of all of those machines in intensive care. I like the idea of her playing Three Blind Mice. She never made her wedding that summer. Sadly, she died 3 days later. I can't believe we can't play with so ungainly. So why singing? Because singing is amazing and it does all of these incredible things, and this is very old research now and it's still true. It works on so many levels: physical, mental, emotional and social. And since this research was done 10 years ago, we know that endorphin levels rise, oxytocin levels rise, your cortisol levels drop, and also your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, the autonomic nervous system, when we're singing and we're using voice. There's a fabulous quote about when we sing, our voices and our bodies are the instruments. We are intimately connected to the source of the sound and the vibrations. We make the music, we're immersed in the music, we are the music. Our voices resonate inward to connect to our bodies and to express the emotions, and they resonate outward to help us to connect to others. So the good news is I'm not going to leave you on a complete low. I do jolly stuff as well. So this again is working on the wards at the Brompton, and I developed something called Singing for Breathing or Singing for Lung Health about 10 years ago, which is another talk. And there were 2 groups, one group in Brighton, one in London 10 years ago, and there's now 100 groups around the country. I've trained 250 singing leaders, and I found out today I've got another 30 who've just applied for me to do training in London. This is working specifically with people with chronic lung disease. So I'm going to end with a quote which says, "Health has a hidden character, but manifests in a feeling of well-being. It shows itself when we are open to the world and forgetful of ourselves, when we are creative. We are close to it when we enjoy ourselves, and this represents a kind of treatment." And I suppose what this evening is, and I'm getting all the hairs on my arms standing up, is really a homage and a homage to all of those incredible people that I've worked with over the years. I've been doing this work for about 20 years. I'm a music therapist and community choir leader and voice coach. And I've just been so blessed to see how music has changed the lives of so many people. And if any of you are interested in any of the things I've talked about this evening, these are some of the organisations who can tell you a bit more. Creative Health, the Arts for Health and Wellbeing, was an all-party parliamentary report that came out last year, which tells us a bit more about how the arts supporting health. Birth Companions do incredible work with pregnant women in prison, and the others are kind of self-explanatory. The Musical Breath is my website, and my God, I've come in absolutely on time, so thank you very much indeed.
So, that was brilliant. Thank you so much, Phoene. And at this point in the Bavard Bar, I open the floor to anybody who has any questions for the Bavarder. So, any questions for Phoene, fire away. If you want to ask any questions, then you can. feel free or not. We can take a break because that's what will happen in a moment. Anybody got any questions for Phoene? If you haven't, if you just want to.
No, there's questions. I can feel them.
I
I
can
can
feel
feel
those
them.
questions. I can feel those questions.
There you go.
Yes. So yes.
I've heard it say that everybody can be taught to sing. In your experience, is that true?
I would take the word taught out of that sentence.
Was everyone?
Everybody has a voice. Everybody has an ability to sing. Everybody has also had a complicated life around family, around culture, around gender, around being told to be quiet or stay in the back or mime. So there's a lot of psychological and real things that people get told through their lives that make people feel, I can't give my voice. That said, there are some people who keep in tune better than others. But everybody can sing. And everybody can improve. I mean, people with chronic lung disease, they have something called dysphonia, which is hoarseness. Vast proportion of people with chronic lung conditions, I'll come back to another one on COPD and singing if you want. And everybody can improve to a degree, yeah.
There we are.
What does
Good.
it mean
Yes.
to be totally tone deaf then?
Well, you tell me, what do you think that means?
Well, it doesn't matter what you sound like, you still sound like shit.
Well, yes, that's an interesting aesthetic. No, but that's a really interesting aesthetic, because who says it's shit?
Well, when you can't hold a tune.
Well, that's what I'm saying about pitch, but pitch can be learnt. It really depends on, is it to do with how you're hearing it, is it to do with how you're reproducing it, or is it to do with how you're producing it out of your mouth? Does that make sense? And often with pitch, it's really good to be singing in a group. It's much less stressful than one-to-ones, and God knows you've got so much choice in Eastbourne. There's hundreds of community choirs in Eastbourne. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, the people who come and do the singing for lung health, singing for breathing, it's not about the sound they make, it's about how they breathe to sing, and it's saving people's, life, really. There was a lady behind
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the lung breathing one might be the exception to the rule, but I think most of what you've talked about is people either singing to a group or with someone, so it's kind of social singing. I'm interested in, I like to sing by myself.
Great.
All the time, without caring if anybody's listening or not listening. It's just because I like singing, I like music. So it's different though, surely, the benefit, because it's not about that social connection.
Two different things. So because I only have 15 minutes, I had to truncate all of it into the work I was doing within the prison. A lot of those women would sing on their own, and they would say to me, one of the most moving ones was a woman who'd suffered massive trauma and she was disassociated and she said, I now know how I feel by the sound of my voice. Yeah, so by being able to sing and notice how she was feeling and hearing with the terms of her voice, it gave her a sense of how she was. I think, as I say, it's an expression, however you use it, on your own or in a group.
Yeah.
Magic.
Brilliant. Excellent. Any more questions for Phoene? Yeah. Ted.
Where did you train to become a music therapist?
I'm a bit unusual, and I worked in the record industry for 10 years, and I was a professional pop and jazz singer. And then I went to the University of Roehampton years ago, in about 1995. But then I worked in education and community music for years. But yeah, Roehampton. If anyone's interested in music therapy training, it's on there. It's right at the bottom. It's a bit silly because it doesn't say what it is. It's BAMT, is the British Association of Music Therapy. www.bamp.org if you want to find out about music therapy
Did
training.
you have anything to do with Norfolk Robbins?
I might have done. Do we know each other?
No, I didn't. I went to try and get on the course at Roehampton, but they wouldn't have me, unfortunately.
I was the head of music services for London at Norfolk Robbins for 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic organisation.
Yeah.
Oh, there we are.
Brilliant.
Any last? Oh, okay. Well, in which case, can we thank Phoene? Fabulous talk.